Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Process Podcast. Isabel, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. Hello.
How are you liking our new room today?
I like it. I like the fresh air, the more natural light, and the difference. I think it will be a good place to continue to do the podcast, hopefully.
So, for those who are listening and not watching, we are in the personal training room today, which is where we've been shooting all the content for our course, where Al stands and does his Saturday tester videos. And we thought, why not move our podcast into this room? One thing I'm not happy with is our current seating arrangement.
Our necks are going to be a bit sore after this. I think.
My back is already a bit sore. The fact that I can't slide my knees under a table is worrying me already because it already feels uncomfortable. I've tried the side straddle and I don't like that very much, but we'll work it out.
That looks even more awkward.
I'll just go back to where I was. Anyhow, what's been happening with you today is?
Well, today, these last couple weeks for both of us have been really busy. It's been a lot of brain power usage throughout the days. Today we've had a couple of meetings. I had a meeting with Lottie this morning about potential changes to a program that we're trying to create together. I then had a meeting with Al for the barbell meet that we're running in 2 weeks' time, which we're really excited about. It's our first event that we're running this year in 2022, which is insane because it's almost the end of July when we're running it. And then we had a team meeting. We were shooting stuff for Earned Apparel, which we're now selling at the gym, which is exciting. And then we had a meeting with Ant basically about these new contracts and changes that we're making towards salaries in our coaching team. And now we're here. Yeah,
it has been a very exciting and a very draining 2 weeks.
It has. Even more than 2 weeks, I would say.
I would say when I look back on the last 4 weeks, the first 2 weeks were just excitement.
Yeah.
Like getting up every day being like, I can't wait to sit down and put more thoughts towards this. Yeah. Being super excited about the vision of the future. Being excited about sitting down with everyone and talking about it. Yeah. And then the realization hit, which is like, this is not going to be as easy as we just initially thought. Well, it's not going to be just sitting down with someone saying that these are changes and
everyone
it's full steam ahead.
Yes, yeah.
No, it's been, what we realized was that, and when I say we, I'll take responsibility.
No, I was pretty shocked as well. For sure.
I was just so excited to get these changes out to the team. And the changes, listeners, if you haven't been listening to the last couple of episodes, is that we're moving the entire coaching team to fixed salaries, clear job responsibilities, a new mission of the business, a new vision, 1, 3, 5 years. And we know that in order to achieve that vision, achieve that mission, something has to change. We can't keep on paying coaches based on a commission-based salary. We need to utilize the talents and skills of our team and actually give them the time and the space to be able to do those really meaningful things, which are essentially going to contribute to us building something so much bigger than what we currently have. Yeah. And so what we did was just get so excited about this idea. Myself and Izzy, we sat down and mapped it all out, talked about how we're going to pay each person, created levels, created so much, you made some beautiful presentations for each individual, and we're just like, we just need to sit down and do these things. What we realized we had to do and we didn't do was actually create the actual vision. What do we really want to achieve, and actually present that to the entire team. So we sat down, presented that whole thing. We spent 2 hours as a team, an hour going through the presentation and an hour of just conversation about the new direction of the business. And then that's where we went back at sitting down with each coach and actually talking them through their individual contracts. And now we've gone through the whole team and everyone is fired up. Yeah. Everyone's on board. And the last 2 days have felt amazing for me. I feel relief. Huge relief. Like even in my daily check-in, I've like locked in a 20 today out of 20 and I think a 19 out of 20. But if I look at my scores the 2 weeks before that, I had some days down like the 12s and 13s, which is low for me. So it's just nice to see it all coming to fruition. And then not to say that that's the end of the challenges, to be honest, it's just the start
for sure.
This is just the start, but knowing that you got the whole team on board and ready to kind of put in the work and start making that vision come to life is really exciting.
Yeah, I do think, like you said, it's been a lot of opportunities for us to grow as people and as in our profession. And not only did we see people in our organization need to step up, but us as individuals needed to step up as well in our management positions and in holding ourselves accountable to the standards that we like to promote and encourage everyone to uphold as well. And I do think it enabled you and I to reflect a lot on our journeys into these positions, as well as why we kind of are in the place we are now, and why we believe in so strongly the things that we believe in, which we've now been able to express to the people that we work with, and we're leveling everyone up in return to our elevation through these challenges.
Yeah. Let me ask you, you put up a post yesterday, which was actually a bit of reflection on your own career and kind of where you're at today and some of the challenges along the way, but things that you're grateful for as well. What was firstly, what was in that post? Yeah,
so one of my goals, we do monthly goals we've talked about here at Coastal, and one of my monthly goals is to storytell once a week. We will talk about it later, which is one of my early passions, and early on what I already knew I was good at was my words and the way that I tell stories and the way that I can connect people and relate to people through shared experiences and conversations. And so one of my goals this month is to storytell at least once a week. And this is because I do believe that I've had a lot of life experience and I've had a lot of challenges thrown my way, whether that's family challenges or professional challenges or anything that I've endeavored to pursue. And I would love to be able to share those with people, that because I strongly believe that even if we touch or change one person's life in our lifetime, then we've succeeded in a beautiful life. And so that's what I'm hoping to put myself more accountable to do. And so yesterday, the post that I put up was just me storytelling about my learnings as a leader and a manager, but more specifically as a female leader and a female manager, because I do think that it is relevant to the times now that we're going through, again, sort of female oppression, but also as reflecting with you recently, I have had overcome things that maybe not necessarily male leaders would have to overcome, but I also think that being Asian and being younger, there are more obstacles put in that way. And I just wanted to share for other female leaders and other people trying to rise to a position like myself, like struggles that I've been through and things that I've learned and things that I've done and or things that I wish I was taught or told, to just basically find an easier way through that journey.
Can I ask what led you to telling that story?
Yeah, I think it definitely had to do with a lot of the conversations we had with our team members, but with me reflecting to you about my last year as general manager here at Coastal in the process, because it's only really been in this last year that I've taken on a huge role and responsibility that required me to elevate myself personally and professionally and hold myself to a higher standard than I've ever had to in my entire life, because I had other people that were now maybe not necessarily looking up to me, but leaning on me and requiring me to be a bigger and better person, right? And I think that some conversations that we've had of like around the idea of hard work and around the idea of being owed something or being deserved something without actually having anything to back it up, I think that's what sparked it, because I do know that there is sort of life balance, and I do understand life balance in the sense of like you can't be working yourself so hard all the time, but I also very much believe in proving your worth and that there is a time that you do need to work hard for a certain thing in order to prove, right? And so like when I was reflecting on why I felt about that so strongly, that led me through my past job experiences and what I've been through in order to achieve and be who I am now. So that's why I decided to write that post.
Nice. It was a really lovely post.
Thank you.
Well done on chapter 1 of your storytelling.
Thank you.
I do remember the day we were sat, I think it was last week, we just come out of a string of really hard meetings. Yeah. It had been a long day. It was a Thursday. Actually, I do remember it. We went outside to just get some fresh air after. I think I'd been in very challenging meetings, just one-on-one with some of our team members. Sat outside. The weather didn't help. It was pissing down.
Yeah, we were moody.
Yeah,
emotional.
We were moody and emotional. And I think it was a really good conversation just to kind of be able to say explicitly what it is that maybe had led us to feel the way we've currently felt while we felt those hard conversations were needed. And certainly for myself, what's been so hard in the current way that we pay our team as coaches is that when you're receiving money for the coaching hour that you do, essentially your job responsibility is just to do that hour really well. And what we're trying to build here is something so much more than just that hour. You know, we're trying to build a family, we're trying to build a team, we have values that we expect the people within this organization to adhere to. But essentially, kind of when you're in a commission-based salary, it's kind of hard because you're not really being paid to do those things. Actually, what you're being paid for and employed to do is just turn up and do your hour. And so what it's made a really hard job for me as a leader to be able to hold people to higher standards when I know really at the end of the day what their contract's asking them to is just come coach the hour. Yeah. And as soon as we've made this change, it's given me so much more clarity, even more so than before. Because I would say relative to most organizations that pay on a commission-based salary, is that we do hold people to higher standards. We have those things like values. We have hard conversations when it needs to be had. We talk about the values a lot. And I know that a lot of commission-based organizations is just check in, check out, clock in, clock out. So I think we'd already done a really good job as an organization with that system, but I think we'd kind of capped out. Couldn't really progress any further than that. And already making this change, even though this change isn't in place yet, August 1st is going to be the date that we're full steam ahead. It's already given me so much excitement knowing that it's going to be so much easier to have these conversations, to hold higher standards. And it's been much easier for me now to talk to people about the importance of hard work. And you're right, it is a hard subject to approach, I think, because so much of the conversation today is all about sustainability, not burning out, balancing work and life. And I believe in all those things a lot. Yeah. But I also do believe that there is a portion of our population that has gotten a bit soft. Yeah. And I certainly know, in the way that I was brought up and the way that my professional career started within this industry, it was probably too much hard work. Yeah. There wasn't enough of the balance for sure. And I wouldn't wish that on anyone, but it's something that's just ingrained with me. I think it's a really important part of anyone who wants to be a part of this organization in the future. Like, they have to have that want and that desire to work really, really hard whilst managing sales. And that's even an interesting conversation, is the whole concept of balance, because balance is so different for everyone. And I think as we move through different chapters of life, balance looks different as well. So, that's just something that's individualized. I'm not here to say like you need to be balanced to be able to be here. It's just like you need to be able to do your job really, really well. You need to have grit and graft and be willing to put in the work to prove that you deserve more. Yep.
I definitely deeply resonate with that. I think the trouble for me before, and you and I have had conversations, is like, we need to be completely honest when we're hiring certain positions and people in those certain positions. And with change, we're also evolving. So before I would always not necessarily complain, but I would openly question you to be like, why are you holding me to higher standards than other people, right? And you would always openly say, well, it's just the position that you're in that requires you to be held to a higher standard, right? And you're one of the people who taught me that, like, some people are happy with being mediocre, and some people don't want more in their life, and therefore they're not going to get more in their life, right? But now we're saying in our organization, we're no longer accepting people who just want to be mediocre, right? And with that then comes the harsh reality of, we now need to work to prove that we no longer also want to be mediocre people, right? And I think when you're so used to one certain way of life, it's very hard to now change that different way of life. But I guess my post was not necessarily like attacking people who believe in a certain thing, but kind of showing people and encouraging people that, like, you are able to succeed and achieve all the things you want to achieve, but there are obstacles and challenges that will be put in your way. And yes, you will have to prove that you are the hardest worker in the room sometimes, or prove that you are willing to be the first one to arrive and the last one to leave when people need a hand, or the first person to raise your hand when a coworker is sick, and to cover them. And yes, that might take away from your life bucket and happiness, but you need to think, what is my end goal here? Like, if we're trying to raise a team of managers and leaders, then we need a team who's able to do the work to be a manager and a leader, because that no longer comes at an easy price if you're trying to do what we're trying to do, which is positively impact people's lives. Like, that's a huge statement to make. You know what I mean? Like, you can't impact someone's life lightly. And if we're saying positively impact, it's so easy to negatively impact people's lives.
And as many lives as possible.
Exactly. That takes so much work. And that takes being such a good person and, like, being able to give so much love and care to make this huge statement. And we need people on this ride who are going to be able to provide that. So I think that's kind of what fired me up to make that, being like, look, we've showed you in 5 years we want this, but to get this, it's going to take a whole lot more than what we've got.
And what was so needed before we could have that conversation or hold those standards was that vision.
Yeah.
Like, people needed to see what it really was that we want to achieve now. Like, now it's no longer just about, you know, doing our job for the hour, being kind of busy at Coastal and putting in a bit of time here and there into the process. Like, no, actually, like, Coastal needs to be capped out and needs to be at capacity all year round. The process has amazing opportunities for growth and impact. But we can't keep on doing that by allocating 30 minutes at the end of each day when we're tired and got no more energy. That's not good enough anymore. Yeah. And so you're right, you know, what the standards we're creating is for people who really want to make a change and are willing to put a lot of damn work to get there. Yeah. And if you're someone listening to this and you're thinking, well, that's just not me, I've never felt that, then that's also okay. Yeah. You know, maybe your goals and your visions for the future just aren't around or aren't similar to what the goals that we're setting, and that's completely fine. It doesn't make you any less of a person than it makes us. It's just difference, and it's understanding our differences.
Yeah. So I think in my post, one of the things that I said is that just remember who you are and remember what you want, because if you always come back to your why, it'll answer a lot of the doubts that you constantly have in your mind. Like, why am I doing this? That person's not doing this. Well, in our organization, we're trying to do what no one else is doing. So we have to be people that are like nobody else. And that's kind of what I put in the post, that you need to remember that you aren't like anybody else. And we don't want people like anybody else, right? And I think one of the beautiful things that we've done that in my post, I'm encouraging people to do is find that love and passion and purpose that you have and how we can work together to then grow forward. Because there's so much room for success in the world that we should be wanting it for every single person in our organization, right? So one of the things that we've done is look at the strengths of every single person in our team and how can we now monopolize that kind of and use it to the best of our advantage and to their advantage, because now we're allowing them to do what they actually love and not just the profession that they came in to clock in and clock out for. So like, I've worked in so many jobs where it's like you're going in to just do the job and you leave, and that's why you're okay being mediocre. But now we're saying we're actually going to take what you love. Like me coming into this position, I knew this is exactly what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be, so I was willing to be here for 12-hour days. I was willing to take desk shifts just to help my team out. I was willing to be in the events doing all those things, and we didn't get paid for it. It was just out of the love of our hearts, because I knew this is what I wanted to do. So I think like we're encouraging everyone in every organization to make sure that the people you're with, you're using their strengths and their talents, but also making sure that they actually want to be there. And I think that's something that we've had to have conversations with our team about, being like, do you actually want to be here, or are you just here because you think you want to be a coach?
So I think that's the first question that people need to ask themselves before the organization starts asking the employees, is like, what do you want? Yeah. You know, what are you really passionate about? What are you really good at? And are you actually doing that thing every day? I have so many friends who I went to school with, university with, who are in jobs, you know, mid-30s now, who don't enjoy their jobs. Been in their careers for 10 years, you know, it gives them the money to allow them to do the things they want to do outside of their job. And that's perfectly okay, actually. Again, that's perfectly fine. But I also do know that these same people do have amazing talents. And they do have things they're super passionate and purpose and feel purposeful about. But of course, like, it's scary, like, you know, making change and making, you know, packing up and starting something completely fresh and something new is a risk, for sure. Not everyone's in that position to be taking that, to be making that decision and dropping what they currently have and taking something new, which may not actually work out. And I'm very, very fortunate myself, maybe like yourself as well, to be doing something I feel is very purposeful, and it's never felt like work. And it's never felt like a chore or a sacrifice to do more, because it's just always been what I want to do. And that actually, in seeing your post, motivated me to want to actually post something myself about the whole idea of process versus outcome, and reflecting on my life, and where there's been times where the outcome has been important. And in this case, the outcome for many people is like, how much money do I earn at the end of the month? What's my job title? What's my career progression? Where the journey in our careers is actually like the loving of every day of what you're doing, and accepting the outcome regardless of what it is. Yeah.
So I think something that I've listened to a few podcasts about, and like, it has been a blessing of COVID, is that there's like this new movement going on in the world where a lot of people before COVID were very unhappy at their jobs, but they were just unwilling to leave their job because they felt like, well, if I don't have my job, I'll die basically
Yeah.
because I have no money and I don't know who I am. But then because
There's
COVID,
a term for this. What's
yeah,
the
there
term?
is. I don't know. It's like a something crisis, or I just listened to that anyways.
Yes.
And then
Was that Stephen Bartlett episode?
I think so. Yeah.
I think I listened to the same one.
And then because COVID happened and everyone was forced to no longer have this job that they hated, and then everyone is still alive unless something bad happened, but like they were able to survive without this terrible job, and they had to now find what they were good at and what they actually love so that they could make a life out of that. People are like no longer scared of these hard and challenging things, and they no longer settle for mediocre because they know that actually I deserve more and I'll be okay without this mediocre thing in my life that I don't actually enjoy. And I feel like we had to learn that too. That's why when we were no longer able to work and make money out of Coastal, we were like, well, what do we love doing and what are we good at? And that's how we found the process programming and all this online and educational content. And we completely monopolized that and like grew that because that's where our true passion and purpose is now. And that's why we've made all of these domino effect changes because of that, right? So I think that's kind of the thing where we need people to also realize that if you're going to chase passion, you're most likely going to take a pay cut. You know what I mean? Because like you're no longer going to be working for the safety of a salary from another company. But now you need to prove to yourself and prove to other people that you're working with that I'm so incredibly passionate about this. It's not because of the money. It's because I believe in what I'm doing and I love what I'm doing. And I know that if I show you that I'm so good at this and I love this and I can make it successful, I will be rewarded. Because all of the energy you put out into the world, good, bad, will be returned to you. And you'll realize that it's no longer the monetary satisfaction that you're getting. If it really is your true purpose, it'll be all the other cascading benefits that you're getting that will be rewarded. And as a company, you and I, especially, I don't know about other companies, we can see that and we will then reward it monetarily. So I think that's just the education that we're trying to put out into not just our people, but into ourselves and believing it fully, and into people that we're trying to share this new movement and way of paying.
But we've realized the more and more we've sat down to think about this and how it's going to manifest itself in the future and what it needs to look like now, it's become clearer and clearer to us as well. Certainly every time I sit down with a coach to talk about the vision, I've got a little bit more clarity. I've got more language that I can now use to better describe what the future is going to look like. And the pay cuts are short term, right? It's like right now, this is a huge risk. Like we're not sure if this is actually going to pay off. So right now we need to all accept that we can take a little bit less, prove ourselves together, myself included. I'm going to take a pay cut and I need to prove myself in my new position. But, when you can just accept that simple notion that the better the business performs, which is a result of all the individuals within it doing their absolute best, the better we're all going to do. The more we're going to be able to financially support people, the more we're going to give people opportunities for more growth outside of their current responsibilities. And that's a buy-in that we're now seeing. It's like, actually, if we can all rally hard together and all, add our own individual little bit of talent to this well-oiled machine, holy shit, think how much we can actually possibly achieve. And, I know that the conversation of the fears that people currently have over what their paycheck may look like right now is not going to be a thing in the future. Yeah.
And I think for me, when I've reflected on conversations we have, and I've also tried to deeper understand why people may have had certain questions or not necessarily the exact same outlook as us, because that would never happen anyways, I came to the fact that the most important thing that we're trying to do is encourage people to find who they are and what they love, because we're now providing a space for people to bring those talents and that love and care into our organization that we can now grow together. People leave their jobs to go to entrepreneurship to have this opportunity, and that's even harder than what we're saying now. We're saying, look, we're providing you an opportunity for entrepreneurship by bringing what you like doing into our business, but you're not starting at a zero salary where you have to pay for everything investment by yourself. The company's investing you to do that. But in order to do that, our investment needs to be minor because we're trusting you and we're putting so much risk on you and believing in you that you will make this new product a success. And when I look at my past careers, I've had too many jobs that I'm proud of. It looks on my resume that I'm just job hopping, but it's because I trust my intuition, I trust my gut, and if I'm in a situation where I feel like this isn't aligned with my purpose in this world, I dip, and I'm like, I'm trying to find the next thing, right? So talking about pay cuts, before I moved to Coastal to work at Nocco and Barabels as the marketing manager at Nocco and Barabels.
So you moved from Philippines to
Yes.
Hong Kong,
Yes.
because your primary goal was to pursue your
My
your
CrossFit
your
endeavors,
CrossFit
yes.
endeavors as an athlete, and in the meantime you got a job at Nocco.
Yes,
Continue.
as the marketing manager at Nocco and Barabels, which is a pretty huge company in Europe, and it was making its way here in Hong Kong. But I absolutely hated my job. I was miserable. And like, yes, I am into creatives and I am into marketing. We did some amazing projects, but
You
I
did an
wasn't.
amazing job
I
at Nocco, by
loved
the way.
it, and like I worked my ass off, thinking that if I do like what I always do, I put all my love and effort into a project in hopes that I will see not only my success but the success of the company. But I just felt like I was constantly butting heads with people and like not being fully supported, and was always chasing a number rather than what I believe the company could be. And I was always having to go through hoops of headquarters and all these kinds of things, so I couldn't actually make what I believed was true progress in that company here in Hong Kong. And so I was ready to leave. I was ready to completely take that pay cut, which was pretty good, and go back to the Philippines and just continue to come to Hong Kong back and forth for my CrossFit endeavors, because I was not going to stay at a job where I didn't believe I was fulfilling my passions or purpose. And then the universe provided, and you provided, and there was an opportunity at Coastal for me, but it was a starting job. It was like half my salary, and it was 8 hours a day, 5 days a week on the desk. And on top of that, I was doing marketing for you, because I knew that was what I really wanted to do, which was the creative side. But I didn't even hesitate or blink when the job was offered to me, because in my heart, I knew I want to be here. This is what I want to do. I had a roommate for the first time in my whole life. I've been living alone since I was 17, as soon as I left high school, but I couldn't afford not to have my own apartment in a big place like this. So I had a roommate, which was, you all know me, I'm completely introverted, and
Completely
I absolutely
forgot you had a roommate.
Yeah, and I hated people. I wanted to go home and just be by myself, but I was like, look, this is a sacrifice I'm willing to make. I'm going to be here for that. Like, you know what I mean? And then from there, I worked my ass off to prove to you that I deserved more in this company. And I never asked for more. It was always an opportunity presented itself, and I would raise my hand and be like, look, I think I can do this, and I will show you that I can do this. And whatever pay you're going to add on top of that will just be because you're giving me more responsibilities. And 6 months down the line, I had another opportunity again, because the universe provided, like I knew it would, if I just kept my head down and did everything that I needed to do. And that's when I was then blessed with the opportunity to be general manager here in like a short amount of time that I could have never dreamed that this would happen to me. It was never in my peripherals or in my vision. But I am a strong believer that everything that you do, someone is watching. The divine is watching. The universe is watching, and it will be given back to you. And I feel like I just wish more people wouldn't shy away from that kind of hard work, or more people wouldn't give up right at the precipice of greatness, because that's just when something amazing is going to happen, right? And I feel like we should be encouraging that more. But I'm also going to give full credit that you always provided. And I feel like that's what we're trying to do for our staff members, and what other companies should be doing for their staff members is like, once you see somebody, recognize it, show love, show care, nurture. And then they will want to continue to work hard for you, and they will want to continue to do whatever they can to elevate your business, come with new ideas, like be willing to do things outside of their job descriptions, be willing to help anyone, be there anytime. Reward that, because that's when you'll see that both of you are then coming together to make something even bigger and better than what you thought you could do yourself. Sorry, that was such a long monologue.
Well, no, it's amazing, but I just want to know, I now want to know what those jobs leading up into Nocco were.
Yeah.
Because I just want to say, at the time when you took the Nocco job, you were how old?
23, turning 24.
There's not many 23, 24-year-olds who are going into jobs with the outlook of like, this needs to be meaningful, this needs to be purposeful, and if it's not, I'm going to make a change.
Yeah.
Or at the same time, what I always really respected in you was maybe some would see it as the audacity to step up and be like, I see you're advertising this job, I think I should have it.
Yeah.
And here's why. And I was always like, that's fucking cool. Because, she clearly wants it.
Yeah.
And like, rather than me having to convince her to take the job, she's trying to convince me to give her the job. That's a rare thing that you don't really see these days. That like confidence, that self-confidence, and I guess the self-awareness to know that this is really something that I want to be doing. Please give me the opportunity.
Yeah.
And to not be afraid to ask. So I want to know in your backstory now, in your professional career, whenever the hell that started, there must have been at some point, there must have been lessons in there. We've got to do some dot connecting here to realize, what I want to know, what brought you to that point to have the confidence or to be able to just drop something and leave and move on to the next thing. So take me back. What was your first ever job?
Yeah. So my dad has a family business. He builds boats. And I always knew that's something that I didn't want to do. But because Subic is a small place and we're a pretty tight family, it was basically just me and my dad. Whenever he needed help with something, I would always be the person to help. And if I didn't have the skills to do it, I would always learn how to do it, because I've always been the I can't disappoint my dad, I have to do whatever he needs kind of person. And so I think from a very young age, that kind of adaptability and needing to learn and never saying I don't know and having that being the end of the story was instilled in me. So it's like from a very young age, I was learning how to do website design. I was learning how to write emails and how to correspond with people, because my dad is a very uncustomer experience type of dad. He's very like blunt to the point, doesn't build relationships really well. So I was always the person that then had to do that for him if he wanted to grow his business, right? So my first job was definitely working for my dad, I guess, like anybody's job is. But I think with that, we never got money unless it was worked for. So I think that was also instilled in me that you...
As in pocket money?
Yeah. That you always was only rewarded for the work that you were willing to put in. And if I wanted to buy something, then I would have to come up with jobs that my dad didn't expect of me in order to do it. Like, he would never tell me a job to do. It'd be, well, I need something, so I'm going to go out and do it and be like, Dad, I've done this. Where's my reward? You know what I mean? So like that was always instilled in me at a young age.
I want to jump in. So when I started getting pocket money, which I was late to get pocket money relative to my friends, and I always thought that was unfair because my friends were all getting a weekly allowance and I was getting nothing. Now some bad things grew from that. One of the bad things was that I started to scab money from other people in my school.
Oh God.
Yeah, so not something I'm really proud of. My friends think is hilarious because I literally became so good. I became like a salesman where I would essentially be, this small 11, 12, 13-year-old kid who would stand in the cafeteria almost begging for money. And I would, I would come out with elaborate stories that I would like, gain trust in the elder kids to just lend me $2, 2 Hong Kong dollars. That was it. But if I had 4 Hong Kong dollars, I could get myself an ice lolly and eat an ice lolly like my friends who all had pocket money who were buying their own ice lollies. Yeah. But I genuinely got to a point after 3 years where there wasn't a kid in the school who I hadn't borrowed money from. And the not proud part of this was that I didn't pay anyone back. Nice. So if there's genuinely 1,000 kids, I reckon, out there who I am in debt probably 2 Hong Kong dollars to in the world. Some would keep on giving me money. It was amazing. But when my dad my mum and dad eventually decided to give me pocket money, I would have to present my bank accounts to them. And I didn't have a bank account, but essentially I would have to record all my spendings within the week. So my dad gave me a notebook with a calculator, and I'd have to essentially tally up my spendings and justify what money I needed for the week. The only thing that I would get refunded on was taxis to sport training. So that was something so obviously what that then led to was me lying about how many taxis I would take to get more money. Yeah. That's not a good thing. But generally, like similar to you, I'd always have to justify what the money was for. And I'd have to walk into my mum and dad's room on a Sunday when they were still in bed with my accounts and stand at the end of the bed and present to them my spendings for the week and what I now need for the next week. I think it's kind of cool that we both had something similar.
For sure. I definitely think it's part of this culture that in this time that we grew up in. But same thing is like, if we ever wanted anything, my sister and I, is like, look at me, I'm so extra. Like, I love looking good and doing my hair and all that kind of thing. But like, I just had a dad who didn't believe in any of that. Like, he believed in wearing secondhand clothing. Like, our car was like 10 years old when we first got a car, but we also had to help pay for that car if we wanted it. And it was like a stick shift that you had to change the water and oil by yourself every week. Otherwise, it would overheat in the middle of the road. You know what I mean? So he's a very old school type of dad that didn't know really what to do with girls. So if we wanted those things and we wanted money from him, we had to do work from him. We had to go to the yard to help him with the boats. We had to sweep all the leaves off of the thing. We had to wash his cars. We had to do the chores in the house. And so it's like we were always being innovative and finding things that we actually enjoyed in order to earn money so that we could live an enjoyable life that we wanted to do, right? So I think that was very instilled in me up until I was going to high school, and then now I had to decide where I wanted to go to uni. So we start deciding that in 9th grade. I don't know what it is here in Hong Kong, like first year high school or something. And I always knew I wanted to leave the Philippines. But in order to do that, we needed to get a scholarship, right? And so I had to plan, being like, well, what do I need to do to get a scholarship? Well, I need X amount of grades. I'm not the smartest natural person, but I'm incredibly hardworking and know that if I put my mind to something, because of all these things that was done when I was young, I'll get it. So I graduated my class valedictorian, which is number 1 in your class. And that way I could get a scholarship to most places that I applied to, because that's just all I wanted in my life, right?
Well, was it that if you didn't get a scholarship, would you not have been able to travel and go to university?
Yeah.
So it was basically scholarship or nothing.
Exactly. Or go to a community college or somewhere that wouldn't have helped me excel in life in the way that I knew I wanted to excel. So I got a scholarship to various places, UC San Diego, Griffith University in Australia, University of Miami. Those were the 3 places that I really wanted to go to get as far away from where I was as possible. But fortunately, unfortunately, as I said, it's just me and my dad. There was just health issues, and I do have a lot of like daughter guilt, and I was like, I just can't leave my dad. And so I went to University of Manila, which I got a full scholarship for, and I got housing allowance and all that kind of stuff. So it ended up being well.
Cool.
Yeah. So, but when I was there, again, my dad wasn't paying for anything. So I needed to get a job fresh out of college. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do that's going to enable me to keep, because you have to keep your certain grades up in order to keep your scholarship. What's going to enable me to live a good life here in Manila, as well as do my schooling and still have time to do all the things that I wanted to do. Because I was also playing basketball still, because I've always done sports. You don't believe it, but I'm fucking good at basketball. Anyways, and so I would just apply for jobs. So I had like the most random job. I worked in retail. I worked in Louis Vuitton for a couple months, and I was like, fuck this. I hate snobby people coming and just like telling me that they want to buy these $100,000 worth of bags. I worked in a coffee shop for a little bit, and that's where I discovered that I really do like interaction and talking with people and making that connection and relation with them. And then I started working in the school. So I work in the school where you can do work study, basically. The hours that you work is then taken out of certain hours that you're required to keep your scholarship. And that's where I really learned how to do finances and organizational skills and just being able to talk in the way that you'll be able to get what you want, kind of. Because like if you were in good graces with people, then you got more opportunities. And from my school then, I was bored. I have this itchy feet syndrome that my dad says. It's just like if I feel like I'm not challenging myself or I'm not doing something, I need to find something else. And so I applied to go to Barcelona to work in the Ritz-Carlton in a hotel. And I do think this is a huge moment where my life changed, because again, it was Isabell being laser focused on something that she wanted and knew that she was going to get it. So I did everything to get this position in Barcelona, and I got the job. I literally flew to Spain with 2 suitcases. Like I had to plan everything. Like my dad doesn't help with any of that. Like I had to figure out where I was going to stay. I had to figure out how to pay for the flights. Like when I got to the airport, how I was going to make it to the place that I was going to go. Like I had to apply for my ID card, my bank card, all of that. And I was 20. You know what I mean? So it's like I just gained all of these life and work ethic experiences because I chose to put myself into challenging situations that forced me to learn these skills. As soon as I got to Barcelona, I like broke down. I was like, what the fuck am I doing? I don't speak any language. I don't know anybody here. Like, where am I going to go? What I'm going to do? But then you just like have a moment of ugly cry and you're just like, well, I'm here. I need to figure it out. And I think that's just always been in me, is like, yes, you can have a moment to cry, but then you still need to pick yourself up, back up and figure it out. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to be saved. You're not going to be given any help. So we worked in that hotel. We worked in the hotel for a good 2 years. Living in Barcelona was one of the best experiences of my life. It was amazing, but I also had to grow up. Like, I had huge responsibilities. This is probably one of the first times I experienced racism. Like, I would be in a row of 4 other receptionists that were white, and customers would want to only speak to them because I looked Asian compared to them. Or people would talk to me, and if they weren't happy, they'll always be like, can I speak to your supervisor? Can I speak to your boss? And if my boss was a woman, they'll be like, I want to speak to a man. And so, like, I gained a lot of these experience I wouldn't have learned in an Asian country, you know, but that showed me how to talk to people, how to interact with people, how to stand your ground, and how to not necessarily assert authority, but exude an aura of confidence and respect to be able to deal with your own situations, because you don't want to be that person that then has to go to your manager and be like, they don't want to talk to me, or I've made a mistake, or I don't know what to do, right? But all the beautiful things that come out of working at a hotel, especially something like Ritz-Carlton, is my love. And what I found out I so love to do is guest relations and customer service. Because you're given complete autonomy to spend whatever money you want to make a guest feel like the most important person in the world. Because if every morning we would do a team meeting, and if your name was in this TripAdvisor review, you would be commended and you would get rewarded for these kinds of things. So I would stay hours after my shift preparing birthday things for little kids that were coming in. People who would book in, I would email them, be like, oh, what are you celebrating? I would decorate their room out for them so that when they came, it's like they felt like these completely special. I would remember everybody's name. If people had troubles, we would always apologize with certain things. If we knew people liked certain things, and that's where I was like, fuck, I love this. I love making people happy. I love changing people's lives. I love for even just one moment making these people feel like they're the only people in the world, right? And so that's how I knew that this is what I was going to do, and I wasn't like, this is my purpose in this world, right?
I can just picture you in that role, doing all of that, because you do so much of that here as well. And those aren't things that are necessarily in your job responsibilities, but it's just kind of going out of your way to make someone feel special and cared for is, I think, one of your greatest qualities.
Thank you.
And yeah, it's cool that you had at a young age that ability to pair again, like that talent and that purpose with your job. Must have been cool. It was one of the first times that I remembered that this is what it needs to feel like, you know, because I've had jobs where it was, I gotta get out of bed to do this, or I gotta wear this, or you know what I mean. And then when I was in Barcelona, I was like, this is what work is, you know, like being with a group of people. Especially I had a team of girls that we were best friends, and just wanting to come to work because you knew that other person was on shift. Or you would work nights from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m., but that was okay because you were with someone that you wanted to work for, and supervisors who genuinely wanted to see you succeed. That's also the time where I knew that the people you're working with is so important. It could make any hard day, any shit day where a client was yelling at you, or you saw a naked person in the lift, the people you were with sounds like
made
a good
it better.
day.
No, not a drunk naked person who had no idea what he was doing or where he was. Anyways, so I then had to make a decision that if I was going to go home to finish my degree, or if I was going to take another job responsibility in Barcelona. And I think everyone has it. Sometimes we just let our cognition overcome our intuition, and we quiet down our intuition so much that we no longer believe in it or hear it. But I think that I have an intuition that I haven't let quiet down. And in me, I just knew I had to go home. And then when I went home, right away, I found the fitness industry. I started as a spinning instructor, and that's when I knew that I loved being in that industry, just because of all the stories people would say about how the session changed their day, or how things they couldn't do before they're doing now. You know what I mean? But I also quickly realized that I am not a performer and I am not a coach. On top of my spinning and things, I was also doing CrossFit coaching at Central Ground. And I quickly realized, this is not my thing.
What about it made you think that this is not your thing?
it's just, as a coach, you have to also give a lot of yourself to a lot of people at once, and that would just drain me because I can never just shut it down. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm always full present to every single person, and being so introverted, that was just completely drain my cup, that I would go home and spend the next 4 hours in silence because I had to recharge my battery. And I'm like, I'm not helping anyone. I'm only helping those 4 people in that class, right? So I then took on a more marketing and operations manager role in that gym. And that's when I realized that I do love the back end stuff, because I'm still able to make people feel special in the gym. I'm still able to create systems, which I know I'm so good at because I did that when I was young in order to fund my own life. And I was able to still do customer service while making an impact in people's lives through fitness, which I just so strongly believed in, because I've done fitness my whole life, and I know how much it's helped me and connected me with people, right? And then I did obviously take a little break to start competing, because I thought that was what I wanted to do. And something that a story I am going to share that I've learned is that just because you're good at something doesn't mean you need to love it. And I think that was a huge lesson that I learned from my 2 years of competing. While I was competing, my best friend started Spruce, and then that's when I learned that I super love brand design as well. And this is part of my storytelling, which is I love hearing someone's story and making it into a reality, or making it to something completely tangible that they can now take and run. And through that journey, we also tried to open our own CrossFit gym. Like, we had it almost all ready to sign, but we fell out with some of our partners and that didn't happen. So again, it's like working hard with a little bit of divine intervention. Like, when I came home, if I didn't come home, I would have never found fitness. You know what I mean? If I never did the spinning, I would have never started CrossFit, because the spinning person introduced me to CrossFit. If this gym never failed, I would have never wanted to come to Hong Kong, because when that gym failed, I was like, I need to get out of here. Something in my gut is telling me this failed for a reason. I need to find something else. Like, something is waiting for me. Something is calling for me. So I looked and I searched and I slid into your DMs being like, look, I want to be the fittest in China, and I think you can help me do it. I'd love for you to take it on. Again, me being like, just putting myself out there and being like, I have a feeling this is it. And so if it will provide, what's the worst that you're going to say is no, then this wasn't the right feeling, right? And so I moved here. And that's when I did Knock on Barbells, and then the whole situation, and now I'm here. So that's a huge, long rant again about my life.
I loved it. What this spiritual side of you, this like believing that what you put out there is what, you know, what you put out is what you receive, and like this feeling of like trusting your intuition or trusting your gut, has that always been something that's been a part of you?
Yeah, I think, like I've mentioned, I've always been not necessarily religious, but spiritual. I always believe that there is divine intervention, that there is, whether it's energies, I don't think there's necessarily a deity out there, like a single being that's controlling everything, but I believe in the vibrations and the energy of the world and how much effect that has on every single life. Like, if you have 2 plants, like literally try it, and you talk negative energy to one plant, the exact same plant, and you talk loving, caring words to another plant, that negative energy plant will die. He doesn't understand why you're saying. So there's clearly energy in this world that is being reflected into all aspects of life, right? And I think through experiences, it has gotten stronger, because I know that if I just trust my gut, something is there. Something is waiting for me, whether that is success or whether that's an opportunity to learn. It's something put in my way for me by the world. And so I think that's something that I encourage everyone to lean into a little bit more. Like, it's so easy to be so systematic and so black and white, but there's a part of us as beings that are meant to be spontaneous, meant to be creative, meant to follow this thing we can't understand. And like, I encourage everyone to lean into that, because you'll more likely than not find something that you've never thought was there.
I mean, I totally agree with it. Like, it's something that's probably come in my life a little bit later.
Yeah.
I'd probably say in more recent times, actually, probably the last few years, that I've really started to lean into this belief that what you put out there will come back to you. What you radiate to the world will find its way back to you in some way, shape or form. But I've also had a lot of self-reflection into like younger times and maybe not so good times, and being able to connect the dots between things I might have been doing, ways I was behaving, things that I was saying, and how that manifested negatively on things like my health, the people around me, my relationships, my homes. So I've done a lot of reflection on that, and I totally believe now in that, like you just got to keep on doing the good work and the right work and be patient. It will come back to you. Going back to your story, it's like your journey has been about like not being afraid to try. Some of the things have had, such an impact on you that's helped you find more clarity on what it is that you want to do and what you're good at. And then you've kind of, every time you've had one of those experiences, you've just chased that again somewhere. But you've also done a lot of shit. And done things which you're like, actually, I thought this was going to be good, but it's just not good. And I guess with each of those experiences just gave you that little bit more clarity. Yeah,
I do think that's a huge part of life. And like, I was just reading something which is like, there will always be regret, right? Like, no matter what we do, we will regret. It's either the regret of choosing something or the regret of not choosing something. Which would you prefer? Would you rather have the regret that you took a chance or the regret that you didn't? Because there's an opportunity cost for every single choice that we make in this world. And you just have to be more systematic in the wins and losses that you have, right? Like, if I didn't take certain things, I would be thinking about it for the rest of my life, wondering what if I took that certain thing and I couldn't live with that. I wouldn't be happy with that. So it's just like any opportunity, you should just be like, fuck it, I'm doing it. We'll see what's the worst that can happen. You can get yourself out of shit situations. If your back is put against the wall, you will survive and you will do something. And that may come because I didn't have anything to lose, and that may not be the best thing. But I feel like we should all live like that a little bit more. Like, what do you actually have to lose? Like a little bit of pride, a little bit of shame, a little bit of something to learn. But what is that in the grand scheme of finding what you actually want, who you actually are? And
you're right, it will always work out. It will always work out. Well, thanks for sharing your story.
Yeah, no worries. I feel like we don't even know where we are in this conversation now.
Well, we sat down and said, what do we want to talk about today? I think the thing I really want to talk about was like understanding what your history was with your jobs. And I also did some reflecting on kind of like my jobs, because it's been strange for me because I've been in one job for so long. I essentially graduated from university, and 6 months out of graduation, I set up Coastal Fitness. And so this has been me for 14 years. And the thing that also made me think about this conversation, aside from your post and talking about your career and growth as a person, I listened to a Jay Shetty podcast, and he was talking about imposter syndrome. And I don't know if you ever listened to Jay Shetty, super interesting story. But essentially like an Indian kid who grew up in London, he became a monk for 3 years and then entered the real world at 24. And like, that's where everything started to happen. Now he's like, a massive influencer with billions of people watching his YouTube channel. And it's just a super good dude that I just always love listening to. And it made me think about, he talked about some of his experiences, trials and tribulations in earlier jobs, and times when he had imposter syndrome, and basically his relationship with imposter syndrome, which I thought was really interesting. And it made me think, like, what did I do before this? Like, what brought me to this point in time? So maybe I should share what my story's been. So I think similar to you, I've always, in my family, there's always been like this hard work ethic. Like, context is that my mum and my dad both ended up owning businesses. Neither of them went to university. I wouldn't say either of them came from privileged backgrounds. Very much both kind of low to middle class. Mum growing up in Hong Kong, dad growing up in England, but both earned financial freedom and success, I would say, and climbed up some form of ladder just through hard work and determination. So ever since being a little kid, like, work hard, don't quit has been a part of the way that I view everything. Now, there's really great things that come from that, and there's not so great things that come from that as well. One of the not so great things being that, like, I ended up bottling up a lot of my emotions and not really actually thinking how I felt, or being able to express how I really felt, because I knew what the answer was always going to be. If I said something was hard, or I said I didn't want to do something, or I said how I really felt about something, the answer would always be the same: just do it. Like, you just got to get it done. But I'm also very grateful for that being instilled in me. Yes, I had to learn about those other things in later life, but that's okay. Like, I think that having that hard work mentality led to so many amazing opportunities that happened in my life. And so one of the first things my parents used to say when I was basically 16 was that every summer I need to work. And what I would always respond with, because this is just what brothers do, is that I'll do it as long as you fucking make Ant do it. Lo and behold, 34 years later, Ant never had to do any of it. And I still ask my parents all the time when this conversation comes up, I'm like, why did you never hold Ant to the same standards?
Oh, that's why you're doing that to me. You're getting payback.
There you go. So the first job I ever got was actually when I was actually 15. Legal working age is 16. And so we had to do, as a part of school, we had to do like a work experience week. And I had chosen to do like coaching little kids, multi-sports. And I loved that week, you know, and hearing about all my friends and what they did for that week. They were doing shit. They were miserable, hated it. And I came back from that week being like, I just had the best week ever. And I got paid for it. I got paid like $500 for a week.
You get all the ice lollies now.
Oh yeah, exactly. All the ice lollies. Actually, I had to pay back half of my debts. And this sports coach actually offered me a job after that and said, you know, would you be able to actually be a full-time coach with us or kind of a part-time coach? Now I'm still in school at this point. I barely hit puberty. You know, getting a career and working a job and earning money was not something I was on my radar at all. But I was like, this is amazing. Like, I love coaching. I get to be in sports gear. It was like right down from my home. And it was like I could walk past on the way back from school and actually just step on the field in 5 minutes and be coaching kids. So I actually did that for about 9 months and actually earned a bit of pocket money at 15. My parents thought this was super cool. But something that every time a summer holiday would roll around, my parents would sit me down and say, you need to work this summer. And I hated it because none of my friends had to work. None of my friends' parents were holding them to standards where they had to work. And I just thought it was unfair. I also had no idea what I wanted to do. And I had many conversations with my parents about this. Like, they would ask me, like, what do you want to do? And I'd be like, I don't know what I want to do. I kind of like that coaching thing that I did as a 15-year-old. But like, no, you know, you should really get a real job. And like, bless my parents, this is not bad parenting at all. This is like their experiences. Like, that's what they had to do. They had to go out into the real world, get themselves into a corporate job and climb a ladder. And they did that really, really well. And, you know, I saw the life that they were then living, you know, in their late 40s and 50s. And I was like, this seems pretty cool. Like, you know, they've earned good money. We live in a nice house in a nice neighborhood and go to a good school and get to go on holiday every year. Like, what's not to love about this? So I said, okay, well, I'll do something. I'll work. I'll get some work experience every summer. So at the start of every summer, I'd have to sit down and actually apply for jobs. And I would say I got rejected from probably 80% of every job that I ever applied to. But I would still apply. You know, I tell my parents, and I sometimes hope that they would just sympathize. I'd be like, Mum and Dad, I got turned down from another job. They'd be like, okay, you know, that's okay. Just don't work this summer. But they'd be like, well, what are you going to do about it? Yeah, you have to apply for another one. So, okay, well, I guess I'll apply to another one. So, you know, one of my, other than the multi-sports coaching job that I was doing, I ended up working for my mum as a part of her wine delivery team. So she owned a wine company. And so my first job was kind of to work with the sales team and just understand the business. And then next minute, I'm in a truck with 3 other delivery men and women who didn't speak a lick of English. And I'm just the guy who, when we stop, has to get out, run into the back of the lorry, carry the wines up the stairs, deliver it and get back into it. And, you know, I would go through, you know, 12 hours of delivering wine, not saying a word because we couldn't communicate. So that was one summer. That was actually, I kind of actually really liked that job. I felt like I was like really getting my hands dirty and it felt like meaningful work because I was actually having to do something to earn my dollar. And it was like the rough work. It was physical labor. It was picking up objects. I was kind of like, you know, I was very sporty anyway. So it felt really meaningful. And actually, as tiring as it was, as antisocial as the job was, I actually kind of enjoyed that job. I then would obviously take up lots of jobs with coaching. So rugby coaching was naturally like, you know, I was a rugby player. Sometimes we had obligations with our clubs that we had to be a coach and manage a team. Sometimes as a part of the Hong Kong team, being in that setup, we had to do coaching obligations. But I would then, you know, every summer holiday be a part of the coaching organization and actually run things like summer camps and start coaching kids. And I love that, you know, like, again, like doing something that I loved. It was like coaching sport and playing rugby and enthusiastic kids who wanted to play rugby, who kind of like looked up to me, and it was like, wow, I get to have this really cool impact on these kids and I get to be outdoors and moving and playing every single day. But at the end of every single one of these conversations, the conversation would always come back to my parents. It would be like, okay, cool, when are you going to get a real job? you know, it's cool that you're doing this, Ed, but this is comfortable. Like you need to get into the office world and do that.
Yeah.
And I'd always have resistance. I'd be like, I just don't think that sounds right to me, because I just don't think I like that. Like I struggle to sit at a desk at school and listen to a teacher for an hour. And now you're telling me that my job for the rest of my life needs to be sat at a desk in front of a computer.
Yeah.
Whereas like every job that I've loved, I've been doing something and moving. Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, school finishes, I'm doing these summer jobs. One of the other jobs I wanted to note was that I applied to be an English teacher or an English tutor, because it was what every kid in Hong Kong would do. And I couldn't get a job as an English tutor. I must have had about 10 job applications and everyone turned me down. Now, a big part of that was that I had no interest in being an English tutor. I just thought that I had to do it.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, if my mate Chris can get an English tutor job, and I don't think he's very intelligent or smart, I can get an English tutoring job. But I was clearly walking into these interviews and they were like, this guy doesn't give a shit about tutoring, so we're not going to hire him. So I just wanted to make a note, like I did actually try to make that career for a long time, but it never worked. So when
people know that. People can see through that.
Totally.
That bullshit and stuff. And so I think that's also important. Like you can't be joking anybody. Like they'll know and they'll see through it.
No, absolutely. So I go to university and my mum and dad say, I think you should get a job at uni. And I'm kind of thinking, I don't need to get a job at uni.
Yeah.
Like you guys have said you're gonna help me get through this, pay for myself. Anyway, I went out and got a job in my first year, and I was one of those guys that would stand selling tickets to nightclubs. Wow. I didn't last very long in this job, to be honest. I didn't like the person I felt like I had to become to do it. It wasn't. To be honest, I wanted to be out partying with my friends, not selling tickets to get other people to have fun and party. So that didn't last very long, but I tried it. I then, for 3 years, every summer holiday come back from university, I was a kindergarten teacher.
Nice.
So I used to work at Busy Bees Preschool, and I would, believe it or not, work with 2 to 6-year-olds with one of my best friends, and we would do it together. And we would basically do this job 5 days a week. And it would basically be a pretty cushy job, 5 to 6 hours a day, first half of the day, and then have my afternoons free. But I actually really loved that job.
Yeah.
Part of my job was just to really like sing songs to kids, herd cats, basically, play sports with them once a day, and then, you know, send them on their way. So kindergarten teaching was actually kind of one of my main jobs, I would say, occupied a lot of my time. The thing that I realized that whole time though was that I just didn't enjoy working with kids. I found it hard to bring my language and my behavior, and maybe I know this is not what I should have done, but down to a 2-year-old's level. Yeah. And so I found it quite hard to communicate and interact with the kids. And I just thought, I love what I'm doing, but it's just not really what I want to be doing. But I guess I kept on doing it because it was enjoyable. I did it with good people. I loved my boss. She treated me well. She gave me autonomy. She gave me freedom. And it was quite a comfortable job. What else did I do? So I guess I took on quite a few jobs in my third year of university. I had to get a year of experience where I had to work in industry. And this is actually for about 16 months, so about a year and a half. So some of the jobs in that time was that I worked for a medical company. And my job was to work as a part of the marketing team, because I studied marketing. Yeah. And even though I hated marketing and didn't really have interest in it at all. So I worked in a medical company and I got fired after a week. And I hated it. I was basically begging to get fired by the end of that job. It just wasn't, there was nothing about that I was passionate about. The office that I was in, I didn't have anyone to speak to. I've always been a really social creature. So I always want to be engaging in banter or having conversations, or being the kind of joker in the room. Yeah. There was no windows in the office. I hated that as well. And just got so antsy just sitting still all day. I worked for a nightclub and events marketing company. I got fired after 2 weeks. So that job, I have no idea why I took it. I guess because I liked going out and having a good time. Yeah. So I thought that this would make sense. But at the same time, and this was one of my other jobs, I was a professional rugby player. So part of this nightlife and events management company, I had to basically, the office was tiny, firstly, and I had to share a desk with the DJ who worked for this company. And this DJ, we didn't really get along, did not get along, but just had completely different interests. This office was tiny. Again, there was no windows in this office. I'm talking this is a 5 by 5 meter office for 7 people.
Like our office, basically.
like half the size of our office.
7 people.
No windows,
Yeah.
7 people. The closest toilet was a 20-minute walk away.
Oh, God.
And like just the state of this building was just so horrendous. My job was I had to basically show up. So all day I'd be selling these VIP cards and basically trying to grow this whole network. And so that was kind of like a sales job. And I hated it because I was trying to sell something I didn't believe in.
Yeah.
And that like already just like grinded me so much. And I basically felt like I was just lying every day.
Yep.
And I was being paid to lie and I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Second thing I had to do was actually turn up to these nightclubs at 10 p.m. and be at the door. And I was like, I have to wake up at 6 a.m. for rugby training. Like, I'm not going to do it. And so genuinely, I can understand why they fired me. Because like we've hired you to go to these nightclubs. You did one night and have now refused to do every other night. Like, what are you doing for us out?
Yeah.
And so I lost that job pretty quickly. And actually, so then I worked for that year part-time as a professional rugby player. I then got a job with Hong Kong Rugby Union. And my job was to be a part of the Hong Kong Sevens production team. That year, I really wanted to play in the Hong Kong Sevens, but I dislocated my shoulder 2 months before. And so basically, I got ruled out because I was going to have a surgery. So instead, the Rugby Union were really sweet and said, we can give you a job. So I worked in the office at Rugby Union for 6 months. And my role was to essentially run the accreditation program, which is when you run a big event, people who want to come to the event, they need to receive passes. And those passes they wear around their neck. And this guy who's about 80 years old had created this software on this ancient computer. And the Rugby Union had been using this software every year. So I had to learn how to use the software with this old dude who taught me how to do it. And that was just my sole job, just to get that whole accreditation system working. Obviously, I had to make one for every single player that came in, every single food vendor, every single media person. So I think I made like over 2,000, 3,000 accreditations that year. And I was a man in charge of that whole thing. I actually really loved that job. It's like boring and mundane as it seemed. Like I had for the first time like actual responsibility. And it was like I had this whole event, whether someone would get access to the stadium or not, even if they've flown from South Africa, like it's down to me and I could mess us up massively. And the fact that the team trusted me so much to do it, and I had to learn everything. Like I genuinely everyone else had Dells and nice IBMs, and I had this, I couldn't even tell you what this computer was, but it was so shit. But that was it. That was my job, was to sit in front of this one computer and just communicate with people across the world. Gather their photos, upload it to a system. And that felt like a really rewarding thing. I think a part of it was that I knew I was giving something I was doing work for something greater than me. It was like this massive event of the sport that I love, that I'm actually a part of this team. And so that was very fulfilling. And that taught me the importance of being a part of a great team, having a strong leader, being given autonomy and responsibility
and
trust and guidance. Like I got educated on how I need to do it. Then it was like, all right, Ed, it's down to you to go ahead and do it. I can't believe I got this many jobs. I worked at UBS Bank and I worked in the client events marketing team. So this was another, I got just lucky through the Rugby Union. UBS was the title sponsor for the Hong Kong team. And, I said, I really want to get some work experience. And so they said, we can maybe get you in at UBS. So I went through quite an arduous interview process. And to be honest, knew nothing about investment banking, but ended up getting a job in the marketing team. So my job was to look after the clients of UBS Bank, which is a huge bank. So I was working in Exchange Square, like middle of the CBD, wearing a suit to work every single day. And like I felt for the first time like an adult. I had an amazing team. We had a team of 8 people in an office of about 30 within a building that had about 5,000 employees. So like a huge operation. And the clients event marketing team was like an amazing team, like just a really, really good bunch of people. Everyone kind of like in their 30s. Now I was, 20, not even 19. So I was the young kid in the team, but like a bunch of Westerners, and some local staff as well, but just really connected. And I loved it. And this is the first time that I'd ever experienced what I'd experienced playing team sports, football and rugby, in a work environment. Like this was a team. Like these guys would do anything for each other, and they worked fucking hard. And even though I was essentially kind of like an intern getting paid peanuts, I worked really hard. I worked 6, sometimes 7 days a week. I would go out on social events with the team. I would go above and beyond everything that I was asked for. This whole time, I'm still a professional rugby player. I even had a shoulder operation, so I spent half of it in a sling. But that was the first time I felt, just a professionalism of an organization and clarities on job responsibilities and having an amazing team was really, really cool. It's also the first time that I experienced having a really bad leader. The boss of our team was not respected. And the conversation about that person was not good. And I felt as the young person coming in that it wasn't right for me to come in and start contributing to the negativity, but I felt negativity around me a lot. And I could see, even though I didn't know what was needed or required of a leader, I could see the things that this individual was doing that was losing trust from her team. And it was things like a lack of honesty, lack of transparency, lack of consistency with standards. Like, this person wasn't doing the work. And so she was expecting people to do hard work, but wasn't putting in the hard work herself. And it was really obvious to see. But I would say that job taught me lots of things as well. I learned how to use Excel spreadsheets, which people genuinely think I'm computer illiterate, and I kind of am somewhat computer illiterate, but I know how to do a few spreadsheet cells, not cells, formulas.
Nice.
I was
like sum,
like equal sum, open bracket, drag, close bracket. But that was an amazing experience as well. I then worked for a sports clothing company, Tsunami Sport, and my job really was stock and inventory. And I only really worked that job because I loved the brand, and they would give me free gear. I did get paid a little bit as well. I also got given the job of creating their website, which I failed at miserably.
But you tried.
I didn't really try, to be honest. This is where I learned, like, don't put your hand up for shit you don't care about and you're not good at. Because I would sit in front of the screen, genuinely like staring at a screen for hours, nothing happening, just looking at the clock, being like, please just let my day end. So whilst I had an amazing team and I was in an amazing business where I loved what they were doing, this is where I learned it matters what you're doing.
It does.
The why of what you do is important, right? The purpose, the mission, that's important. But if your actual job is not enjoyable and you're not good at it, then that actually sometimes trumps the why, which is why I feel so passionately now about finding the talents of people, things they actually want to do and they love doing, and making sure they're doing it. Because that was a great example for me. I thought, it doesn't matter what I do in this job. I love this company. I love the people so much. It's going to be a great time. And I actually ended up having a really shit time because the job that I said I would do, because I just said, give me anything, I'm happy to be here, made my life miserable. And then, of course, I started Coastal Fitness.
Yeah, that's actually, I didn't know you worked that many jobs, but it does also, for me, makes me realize a lot of your traits for sure, and a lot of your skills and your experience that I thought maybe you just solely got through Coastal. But it also makes me realize why you're so passionate about this thing and why you think this is your thing, right? Because you've tried everything and anything under the sun. And I think that's just a huge important takeaway, is that you need to be trying things, because you don't know what you love or who you love until you've actually put yourself out there, and like not be fearful or unwilling to do that, because along those ways you also gain not only personal experience but professional experiences. Like, you need, just like how we say in the sport of CrossFit, you need a huge toolbox of skills in life, and in your profession you need a huge toolbox of skills. You can't just say, this is my own job, this is what I'm going to do, right? That will only get you so far in life, and that won't make you fulfilled, in my opinion. So I do think that kind of ability and want to go through experiences and put yourself out there is so important, and the want to gain new skills and knowledge, like I put in my post, I don't know is not good enough. You need to find the answer, and I think that's why I'm so confident in this side of my life. Not in everything I'm confident, but in this side of my life, whereas like I'll always say yes because I'll know that I'll figure it out, because I know that's a skill that I have, is that I won't take no for an answer, and I won't take, well, I don't know for an answer. You know what I mean? Like, I'll find it, because I know that's the only way to be successful. And I think on that one last point on all of that is like, what I was going to say is that, oh shit, I forgot. It'll come back to me. You go first.
I do that all the time. I think one other thing as well, like even within all that, the another important part that I always tell younger kids when they ask me about things like career, and I've gone and done career talks at my old schools and talked about university and things like that, is that sometimes you actually need to move away from what your parents think is best for you. And when I look back on my story, the idea of working in an office and doing the corporate job and climbing the ladder, which is what my parents advocated I should be doing and trying, I did have to go and experience it myself. So I did. Like I worked in a lot of offices in a whole bunch of different industries, and the resounding feeling I got after all of it was like, this is just not for me. Yeah. And so me finding my purpose was somewhat a process of elimination, and actually just ticking boxes, being like, nope, that's not for me. No, that's not for me. No, that's not for me. And then kind of like, well, what's left? What is left for me? And then looking back and being like, well, I had these amazing things in all those jobs that I hated. Like there were parts that I loved, like being a part of a team. There was like helping people. There was coaching and exercise and sports and rugby and training. Like, okay, how can I combine all those things together? What does that look like?
Yep.
Oh, I can coach people and get paid for it and change people's lives.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
I agree. And I think my last point in all of it is just...
Have you remembered it now?
No, it's something different. Well, I wanted to talk about imposter syndrome, but for me, I feel like I've never had that, because you just need to believe in yourself and everything that you're going to do. And if you strongly believe about something, people won't believe in you for no reason. You know what I mean? I think we've talked about that a lot, but my final point for people is just like, I know loads of people think like, oh, it's easier for some people just to do what they love, or like be happy coming to work every day. We don't love coming to work every day. You know what I mean? Some days are harder than that, but we just remember why we're doing and who we're doing it with and who we're doing it for. And I think like you shouldn't be scared to take that risk of finding what you actually love doing. Like the worst thing you can do in this life is just every day not knowing who you are or what you want to do, and just being bored and monotonous and like unhappy. So I feel like the biggest and best risk would be finding what actually makes you happy and what actually you want to do, and everything else will fall into place. Like both of us had said, like you got fired from certain jobs, you got rejected from certain jobs for a reason. You wouldn't be here if you said yes to everything. So like don't be afraid to just put yourself out there and find that, because it will come.
Life's just too short to be miserable for 5 days a week and happy for 2 days a week.
I agree.
Isabell, it's been an absolute pleasure.
It has.
How's your neck feeling, by the way?
It's not too bad. It's more my knee against this box.
Think about my knee then. And my back and my neck.
We need to rethink.
I'm scared to try and look left to see how that's going to feel. Anyway, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you for, that was, I guess, chapter 2 of storytelling.
It was, I guess, yes. Tick.
Till next time.
Bye.